When you're at actual tournaments with the players, do you do like much technical work at tournament? I've always been a little bit confused because like a lot of coaches, certainly on the range, where when I've been to tournaments, spent a lot of time. A lot of it is, it's not fluffing, but it's kind of like, oh yeah, you're looking great. Oh yeah, we'll just tweak your aim, something like that. What do you actually work on tournament-wise with these guys?
Fluffing.
Yeah,
I'm a professional fluffer.
Super.
It's a lot of it's supervised practice.
Right. Okay.
That would be a better way to describe
it.
You've generally got your blueprint, your kind of technical plan with each player. I try and see the players I work with away from events, and that's the best time to do any technical work, make any changes. And then you have your practice plan, how you're prepping for an event, your maintenance drills that you're doing to keep on top of your patterns. At events, it's mostly supervised practice, and obviously week to week you could be approaching how you're preparing for that event slightly differently. There's a lot of observation, out on the course, out on the practice green. So you're getting to understand that player. Observing, you can learn a lot. That's a really important part of coaching, in my opinion, observing and then finding the right time to coach. So I think that's really important, watching your players in competition. Supervised practice. And with putting, you stand on the first tee, hit it miles left. It can be quite easy to work out why you've done that. Putting's a little bit more difficult, isn't it? So I think having another set of eyes about the player, when they're doing the work, that they find a benefit. I mean, when I started my journey as a coach, the last thing I thought I'd be doing would be travelling to these events to the extent that I'm doing. So there's obviously a need for it, I guess.
Yeah.
I just found myself, it kind of evolved into this kind of role.
It definitely seems to be working. I think with things like last week with the PGA Champs, do you get feelings about like good weeks? Because obviously Scottie putted really well at the PGA Champs, and I suppose we'll get into it a little bit because you started working with him about 2 years ago now.
September 23.
23, and obviously since that point, not to fluff you up too much, he's obviously been on a bit of a tear, and his putting has been pretty remarkable. Like the change. What did you with Scottie? Like, what were the main changes that you actually kind of made from where he was a few years ago, being obviously an incredible ball striker, but just not getting the ball in the hole quick enough, essentially?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is giving him like clarity in what he's doing that's actually relative to the faults he has. I think he'd gone down different roads trying to improve things that were wrong.
Okay.
And when you're working on the wrong things, you never really get into the root of the problem, are you? So it was just giving him some clarity and simplifying a lot of things. I mean, he's an amazing athlete and his intuition is so good. And I'll give you a good example of that. In terms of his green reading, he was using Ted, his caddy, a lot, who's actually a good green reader and a great guy, great caddy. But I'm not necessarily a massive fan of that, and I think it was creating some indecision in some of Scottie's reads. But intuitively he builds a very good picture of the read. So we've helped him tap into his own intuition more easily in terms of his green reading, simplify the process, give him confidence in his instincts. So that was one aspect, and then some changes to his setup. Obviously, more recently, changing grip. Just to help really the consistency and stability in terms of how he releases the putter, better face control. And then some simple things in and around. I think a really important thing for him was when we got him to stop using the line of the ball, because I think he was getting very line locked by using that. And that was at the time when he switched to the mallet putter. And one of the reasons he switched to the mallet was actually the sight line and configuration on that club helped him aim the putter better without using the line on the ball. And then as a consequence, he's less line locked with the line of the ball, and that helped him to sort of free up. So there's a lot of little simple things really, but when those little simple things can really help, great talents like Scottie.
Yeah.
So even like last year when his stats weren't as good as this year, and people would perhaps still question some of the stuff he was doing. In practice, he was amazing.
Right. Okay.
Like he's phenomenal. Like it's of no surprise he's the best player in the world when I watch him. So he does so many things well. It's having that sort of confidence, I guess, to take it to the course. And I feel like he's starting to find that level of confidence now that matches the other parts of his game. And this year, I think he's put it really well. I think I saw this week, I think he was ranked top 15 so far this year, which is a big improvement.
It's huge,
I think it reflects the level of ability he actually has.
Yeah. I think especially if he's that good as well, like being top 15 in any facet of the game is great. But when he's already like literally the top of the top in ball striking, then that's massive. Like he's good because he gives himself so many chances.
Well, when I looked at those stats, I did also see he was ranked number 2 off the tee and number 1 in approach. So like those stats tend to get it done.
Yeah, they tend to work. They tend to work, don't they? I think with the players that you work with, like someone obviously you work with Rory for a while, and with like Scottie now, and obviously some amazing players as well. We'll again kind of link down in the description to Phil's website where you can see all the players he's worked with in depth. But between like a Rory and a Scheffler, like what are the main differences that you tend to see? Because they're obviously both great players, but there is a different factor between both of them.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about my job is that you get to work with great players, but also appreciate the very different personalities.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned over the years is to learn how to coach those different personalities differently.
Right.
And you learn from your mistakes, don't you? I mean, I think if I went back and coached, if I went back to when I started with Rory, I'd probably approach it slightly differently.
Right, okay.
Than what I did, having learnt from that experience. But yeah, I mean, hindsight's wonderful. But yeah, every player that you come across, they're different, and you've got to try and accommodate them in how you work. I mean, Rory's an unbelievable golfer, like supremely talented, like Scottie is. But yeah, very different personality to Scottie. Without obviously going into the in depth as to why, but yeah, very different people to work with.
Right, okay. That's interesting. It's interesting certainly going from player to player, and like I said, to actually adapt yourself individually to each of these players. Because I always see you as in my mind, certainly from the outset, obviously I know you a little bit better now, but I always kind of looked at you and thought, that is the pinnacle of like a technical coach, and that players would go to you and they'd come out the other side having a much wider breadth and depth of knowledge of putting, and like be a better that way. But it's interesting, like you say, adapting to the different players and personalities.
Well, you have to even to get your technical opinion of what they need to do better across. Some people can process information easier. Some people can then integrate that easier than others. With some people, you can be very technical in how you deliver information. With others, you can't. So even if you're trying to change or adapt a player's technique, you've got to go about it differently. With someone, you might just try and constrain the environment of how they practice more to encourage certain things to happen. And then with other players, you're going to get down to the nuts and bolts of it. So but then obviously that's only technique. You've got the other aspects of performance. Golf's about getting the ball in the hole, and green reading, speed control, the mental part of the game. As you well know,
it's a big strength. It's a big strength of mine now.
So there's a lot that encompasses, I think, being a coach on tour, which sometimes you don't always get a chance to see.